Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Zara Wild, bringing you the voices and stories of jazz from Durham, North Carolina. Kai, thank you so much for joining Six Count.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been following you for a little time. I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I think the scene, we can say we're pretty mutually appreciative of everything you've got going here, so thank you for that.
It's so fun to be able to hear more about you and the musicians, and to hear more about the stories behind the music. And you were just mentioning that you just completed your first year at the New England Conservatory. So tell us how your first year was.
It was pretty unbelievable. Yeah, it started, it kind of got better as the year went, just getting adjusted to a new place, getting comfortable as a musician in a new scene, and just getting used to it. But by the end of the year, man, the other musicians are just so incredible. And I think the best thing about it is, we obviously have this genius faculty that we get to draw from, but really, as much as that, the peers I have there, within 3-4 years of me, are just astounding musicality, true artists, and I learn as much from them. So it's been really a pleasure.
Very cool. And I'm not very familiar with the conservatory or the Boston scene in general. So what have you experienced there? And are you from Boston originally?
No, so I grew up in rural Orange County. I've lived in North Carolina my whole life up until this last year, and so it's definitely been an adjustment, moving into a city, and just a very different scene, very different culturally, but it's really cool. The conservatory, it's very small, and I think really, I visited some schools when I was applying, and I've been around quite a few different music scenes, and this place really lets artists be artists. And as a friend of mine said at one point, it attracts, I'll quote him, some whack people, but it's I think that's really beautiful, and they really let you do your thing, but they also give you the resources to do it, and give you also the connections, which is really amazing.
And is Mark one of your professors, or how do you know Mark? And I want to hear more about the show you have coming up at the Sharp 9 Gallery in August. But first, would love to hear about your relationship with him and how you two got connected.
Yeah, he's a doctorate student, and so basically that means he gets to go and he studies. And he's also a teaching fellow, so he's kind of, I think, in, substitution for a lot of the things he's getting out of studying. He's going through all the ensembles and, private lessons, but he's also doing teaching and getting trained to be a teacher. So he's really cool. I met him the first week.
Oh, nice.
I got there, and it's a really small school, so you meet people quick. And I heard him play the first week, and he was pretty unbelievable, and just one of the nicest guys I've ever met. We talked for a while, and he kind of shows interest in everybody. And as the year went on, things get so busy, and he's writing multiple dissertations and doing all this stuff. So we didn't get to hang out or play too much. But at the end of the year, I'd been wanting to play with him, so he just kind of came spontaneously and was like, "You want to get a practice room and play duo?" So we played free. We just improvised for about 20 minutes, and it felt great.
Wow.
It was kind of a different type of thing that I hadn't had with anyone really before, just improvising, without a rhythm section, and feeling really free. And I felt like my ears were better playing with him, and it was really fun. And I had told him about the Sharp 9 a month or two before that, because he had been telling me he was going on tour. And
yeah, I saw his schedule. It's pretty lined up so far.
And he's also taking on tour one of my favorite musicians and close friends from NEC, George MacLaurin, who's a first-year grad student from New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
And so I kind of posed the idea, well, hey, maybe I could bring you guys down. I've got this venue. It's my favorite venue in the world. You know, people come to listen to the music. It's beautiful, you know. There's a real audience for it. And so that kind of started it all off, and very grateful that the schedules worked out.
Yeah, and I think that is a big part of the Sharp Nine's vision, is to bring in touring artists and being a home in between maybe DC or other cities, such that people can string together tours and make it possible, because I'm sure that as a touring musician, it's not always easy to be able to make it work. And so I love that in Durham we get to have these artists for a little while, for maybe just a night or a weekend, but it makes it special to be able to have them in addition to the rich talent that we have locally.
Yeah, and that's the cool part for me to see, you know, to see these national artists who a lot of are pretty famous, and to have them come down and get connected with the scene. And then I always see, every time I go to the Sharp Nine with, and this happens quite often, you know, there's an out-of-town artist with a local rhythm section or whatever, and to see their reaction is always such a pleasure, and it's always the same. They're like, what? You know, what's going on? Durham, North Carolina, you know, they're always a little blown away. And, you know, for me to get to bring some of my favorite artists from both scenes together and for a night of music, it'll be really special.
Yeah, and I hope that this becomes maybe a mainstay in the schedule for next year as he strings together other tours. Now, what made you interested in jazz music?
So my dad was a pretty big blues guitarist growing up. So, you know, growing up pretty early, I was surrounded by really amazing blues and roots musicians. And, you know, he played me some jazz and played me some of like the ECM stuff. And he was really into a lot of that open stuff, you know, Enrico Rava, John Abercrombie, and some other stuff. I think he probably played me some Coltrane, but I was never really into it. And it's a funny story. When I was about 13, you know, I'd gone through some rough times, and I was kind of isolated, and I think my parents were worried about me, and they wanted me to have an activity, and they signed me up for this jazz ensemble. It was a kind of mini jazz orchestra, maybe 10 or 15 horns, and I hated it. I was
It didn't work initially.
For about a year. No. And for about a year I was really opposed to going, and they kind of held me to it for a bit, and it's really funny how it worked out, because I remember there was one session, it was every Sunday, and I really didn't want to go, and I remember getting in like a big fight with my dad about it in the car, and I was really upset. I was like, I'm never doing this again.
I hate jazz.
Yeah, I hate playing this, and you know, I wasn't into it. It was kind of like big band music. Not that there's anything against that, but I was used to small groups and improvisation, so it probably wasn't the best gateway for me. And he was like, well, okay, you can go in this one time. If you tell me you don't want to do it, you never have to do it again. And that rehearsal, the director said that he was going to a camp in Louisville, the Abersol camp, that summer.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, Louisville, like I didn't really care. And it was small group improvisation, but more it was like, you know, maybe I could get out of the state, like see some more. I hadn't seen too much. I was like, I could see a new town. Louisville sounds cool. So I didn't know anything about it, but I said I'd do it, and I went back in the car and I was like, I'm gonna finish this semester and I'm gonna go to Louisville this summer. So they said okay, and drove down there. It's like an 8-hour drive.
And did you drive with a tour bus or on your own?
No, it was with the director in his car, and then one other student came.
And did y'all get along?
Yeah, it was great. Super nice people.
I mean, you'd know at the end of a road trip if you're not, if you don't
Especially
vibe.
16 hours. No, super wonderful people. The ensemble director I got that week happened to be Gabe Evans, who was like a local hero. Went to Chapel High School. Now lives in Louisville, but I happened to get in his ensemble. We knew mutual people, like one of our best family friends. It turned out he was like, do you know our friend? And it's like, yeah, that's one of our closest friends. And they went to Chapel High School together. So talk about it being a small world. But
yeah.
Anyway, the first 2 days were cool. You know, I was getting more into it, and it was what I was used to, is playing with a small group, even though kind of different music, but it felt more comfortable and natural for me. And the third day, I'd heard there was all this kind of chatter, and someone big was coming in from New York to play that night at the camp. and I didn't know anything. I think I maybe heard some Coltrane records. I didn't even know if I knew who him or Miles or anybody was. But
do you remember who it was?
Yeah, it was Dave Liebman, who's to this day is one of my biggest heroes.
Very cool.
And he had come in from New York, and he played that night, and I just didn't know what hit me. It was like, I didn't know what I just experienced. It was the wildest experience of my life. And
it's like you're describing like a conversion moment or something.
It was. It's kind of, I can trace everything I do now in my life back to that day. And I remember calling my dad. I was like, I'm stunned. I don't know what just happened.
I'm stunned. I like that.
Yeah. But it was remarkable. And so from that moment on, I've just been kind of nonstop dedicated to this.
Yeah.
And he remains one of the biggest people for me.
Well, I think jazz is such a family in many ways, where it feels like it's a small world and you have similar heroes and things like that. So do you also do blues now, and have you continued getting into blues and roots music, or have you kind of completely gone down the jazz track? Not that those two are, always in separate tracks.
I'd say the best way I can put it is I've completely gone down the improvising track, where whatever I do, no matter what the outcome is, it's always very centered around improvisation. But that can manifest in 100 different ways. I don't feel like I need too many borders or anything. Like, I could just kind of write the music that I want to write, and one thing might be I might be coming from a Grateful Dead place, and then the next one I might be coming from a Coltrane place, and it comes out different every time. But yeah, it's always a thing of expansion for me.
I just watched the movie Elevator to the Gallows, which is a French noir film that was showing at Carolina Theater, and it introduced more of the new wave genre in France. And I didn't know that Miles Davis improvised that entire movie in one day with his collaborators, and it was based off seeing cues from the movie and watching scenes and just improvising what was felt from that, which was pretty amazing. And I'm just curious if there's a movie you would love to improvise to.
Oh man, I don't think I'm qualified to answer that. I'm not a big movie
Sure
person.
Okay.
I mean, I love movies, but yeah, I might have to come back to that one.
Do you have any improvisation heroes yourself? And you've already mentioned a few from Louisville, but who you turn to for inspiration?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, more than I could say. A lot that we've just lost this year, the first two, Ahmad Jamal and Wayne Shorter, those are the two biggest ever, and we lost both of those. Aside from that, Liebman, Fred Hirsch, who I just got to go see in New York and got to talk to for half an hour after the show.
Oh, awesome.
And aside from that, yeah, I mean, blues guys, Pinetop Perkins, Muddy Waters, Johnny Winter, Mike Bloomfield, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Charlie Hayden, Roy Haynes, so many. A lot of drummers. Drummers are kind of huge for me.
Mm-hmm. Just because of how, with percussion and how it reinforces and gives the beat, or why do you think it resonates?
Yeah, and I think I was lucky growing up in a community, obviously this area has incredible musicians, but when it comes to drummers, it's kind of ridiculous,
Mm-hmm. Theus Jones, we've got Donovan Cheatham.
Yeah.
Dorian,
Jeremy Beam Clemens recently.
Of course, Kingfisher.
Yeah, incredible area. And aside from that, I played, because of who my dad was, he took me to the Blue Note Grill when I was really little.
Oh, in New York?
No.
Oh, the one in Durham. Oh, the Blue Note, right?
The Blue Note Grill.
The one just in downtown.
Yeah, by Brightleaf Square.
Yes.
And exactly. And there was a drummer there named Chuck Cotton who I realize.
He's a blues elder from the scene.
Yeah, and he's like one of the greatest. He's played with everybody. He's like one of the greatest blues drummers around. My mentor and close friend Scott Sawyer is from Chicago, and he called Chuck, I think, to quote, the greatest blues drummer east of Chicago.
Nice.
And I was playing with him when I was like 9 or 10, and I didn't even realize. But I think when I started following all these improvisers, and I was lucky to learn the lesson pretty early on that what they do with rhythm is that's kind of the paramount, and what makes music feel the way it does to a listener comes first from rhythm, and that kind of comes first before everything else, and your time feel and your feel,
I went to the Hayti Jazz Jam on a Wednesday recently, and it was the drummer that I felt like I was most easily able to dance to, because I just felt like it's easier to internalize the rhythm, and it's so fun to improvise to all the instruments, but at least that evening it just felt really natural to kind of riff off through movement what he was doing, which was really fun.
Yeah, and it's amazing how certain people just click, and it's not even necessarily a mark of their virtuosity or musicality. It's just like, for you personally, I've had this like I'm in Boston, there are 4 or 5 world-class drummers, and I play with any of them, but then there's one who just feels right, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting how that happens.
Yeah, I love blues music, and as a dancer, blues was what kind of gave me the moment that you're describing, where it's like, I feel like I get it, and it's so fun and expressive. And it was a blues dance after a swing dance to traditional jazz, which I love traditional jazz, and it was swing, but it wasn't until later where I felt like I could just kind of ignore how I, like a consciousness of what I was doing or how I looked, and it just was purely based off reacting to the music, which was cool. But Kai, I'd love to hear more about your aspirations. You've got, 3 more years ahead of you in college and beyond, and maybe that's too early to be even asking, but what are some of your dreams and goals for the next few years?
No, not at all. Really just to continue. Like, I like to talk about like peeling back layers, like as an artist, if you're like, an onion or whatever, and just trying to get to the core of the onion, I guess, just trying, like, I really have so much appreciation for artists of any kind, no matter how the output comes out, who have peeled back enough just to be themselves. So it's really trying to do that. And also, I mean, it's a hard balance, because the music we play is so hard and demanding, as you know. And it's, so at the end of the day, I'm practicing all this stuff, and at the end of the day, okay, I can play in all these keys now. I have this new rhythmic harmonic fluency, but there needs to be something else too. There needs to be more than that. You need to be saying something. So it's hard because that has to be there. That's all necessary. But then it's also what am I trying to put out there after that? So I'm just trying to put a lot of thought. I'm trying to put together performances and shift from being someone who's just will play anything with anybody. Also, I still will, because I love that, but also I just want to be thoughtful, about what I'm doing. And Fred Hirsch told me something when I got to talk to him after the Vanguard. He said, every song I play, I want to basically show that I've considered the song. And I thought that was really deep, and I think that applies to everything. I put very close thought when I play, like, for instance, like repertoire. Like, when I play, I'm kind of getting to the point where I have very specific idiosyncrasies within the way I play, like a melody, for instance. And so now when I choose repertoire, I'm trying to really make sure, that I'm going to leave my mark on the song, and it's going to feel right, to a listener.
Yeah. And
that's whether I'm playing a Bob Dylan song, a standard, I'm playing something more open, I want every show, every song to feel like I'm going, it's more than just I'm Kai Lance and I play guitar. I'm doing something a little more than that,
I think that's something that I really like about listening rooms rather than a bar where you can't, there's people talking and other distractions, where there's so much that the musician is trying to convey. And I don't want to miss those intentional moments, which are throughout, if not through the whole piece, because there are so many different micro decisions that go into it. I was talking to Angela Bingham about, when you emphasize a part of a word versus the other and how that changes the mood or feel of the song. And Ernest Turner was also talking about how he, back in his earlier career, was never hired again for a gig because the vocalist said, like, you didn't hear my music, like you were playing it how you thought, but you didn't consider as a good word what is the essence of what she was trying to do. So I like that you're trying to develop your ears so well while also finding your own voice.
Yeah.
And part of the show's purpose is to connect musicians. And so as you think of the kinds of shows you might want to do, or the kind of music you want. Can you share more of what that might look like and what ideally you would want to do rather than just, as you said, having to say yes to everything?
Yeah, just really trying to put together groups with people that speak to me, and it's mostly like, trios, quartets. This show is a quintet, and it's more Mark's show, but might do a tune or two of mine, and just trying to put together my own repertoire. And that doesn't necessarily mean my original compositions. I don't view it as less creative necessarily to interpret other people's music. And so yeah, just trying to really find my repertoire, find my group, find what that means sonically, and how I can expand that without losing sight of what I'm doing. And I think the biggest struggle with that is just getting the opportunities, but it definitely working hard at that, and it's been going pretty good. I'm playing a couple other things, and this year in Boston I'm hoping to really make that shift, and I have a couple musicians that I'm planning on just trying to get to really focus and just put together my own gigs and really tour with more of a specific vision, and maybe even some mini tours or something. Who knows?
That would be great. You'll have to share with us in case anyone is up there. And I have only been to Boston a couple times. So if someone were to visit, where would they want to go to listen to good jazz?
The best place is the Lily Pad in Inman Square.
Okay. Is that downtown?
That's in Cambridge. I don't know how well you know Boston. But
well, apparently not very well, but okay.
It's all good. I didn't before I went either. But yeah, it's in Cambridge, which is a couple miles away from the conservatory, and it's the best club. My teacher, Jerry Bergonzi, is one of the great saxophonists, and I had the pleasure of studying with him this year, and they do a double header every Monday night with him and The Fringe, which is George Garzone, which is a trio, which is this one-of-a-kind free experience that I just recommend. I don't even know if I can explain it too much, but just...
The Fringe.
Yeah, and they've been playing together for 40-plus years. No, over 50 years, every Monday night in Boston. It started out at a place called The Willow, which... It's old enough that my dad, went to Boston when he was in his 30s, and he saw them, and now they're still doing the same thing on Monday nights.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if I can explain it too much, but if you're in Boston, go.
Okay.
If you're in Boston on Monday night, yeah. And other than that, I found one of the frustrating things about Boston is there's not too much going on, and the places that are kind of more listening rooms are kind of all pay to play, which is, not ideal for artists. It's kind of a sign of things and the way they are today, but...
Versus ticketed or any number of ways you could do it.
And they still charge tickets, but like the Lily Pad, it's maybe $80, $100 an hour to rent. I don't want to talk... Wow. It's a wonderful community. I don't want to, put them down or anything, but it's unfortunate for artists, none of us have that much money, and...
Yeah, the finances are such that you want to ideally be making a profit, but not having, pay to play is, I think, especially difficult or in a tour setting. So maybe if there's more resources or interest, then there could be more investment in those areas. But I can totally see what you mean. Yeah,
but other than that, there's a club right next to our school, literally a block down, called Wally's, which is pretty historically known, and they still have music every night. Some nights are better than others, but that's a cool place to go and sit in if you want to. And there are a couple places.
Nice.
There's the Monkfish, which is a sushi restaurant, also in Cambridge, and they have some pretty high quality acts.
Sushi and jazz, I like it. And how do you plan to spend the rest of the summer? I know many people use it to go to festivals or just practice a whole bunch or plan for the fall.
Yeah, I've got a couple more gigs lined up. I've got one in July in Carborough.
Oh, great. Where will that one be?
July 23rd at the Speakeasy on Main Street.
Oh, great. Okay.
Featuring a good friend of mine, Tyler Monroe, on drums, and Luca Colonna on keyboards. Great Rhodes player and piano player, and then unknown bass player yet.
An unknown bass player?
TBD.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I was like, oh, we need to discover him.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it's exciting to be back here, and as we were saying with the pay to play stuff, it's I love Boston, but it also makes me so appreciative here, and this place definitely has some unique stuff going, and just how supportive it is, and people aren't burnt out, here as much as, obviously the music business, there's going to be some burnout.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, and it's understandable, happens to everybody, but here especially, people feel really excited to play and hungry and ready to make music, ready to put themselves out there, and it's definitely refreshing every time I come back here.
It's great to hear and see that, although I'm not being in the band, I'm not sure exactly what that's like, but I hear that it's more collegial than something that's not supportive. And I've heard, competition, I think Theus Jones was talking about this, where it's like, that's not a bad thing necessarily, where it's a positive thing in that it kind of galvanizes people to produce music at a high level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's a good thing for sure. It's like being around people that are better than you, that's kind of 100% necessary. And it's never discouraged me from doing it though. It's always like, man, I got to get my shit together so I can hang with these people,
Right.
It's like, it's never like, for people say like, man, I should throw all my guitars and burn them, or I've never felt like that, It just, it kind of makes me want to do it more when I hear someone who makes me feel lesser, it makes me like, wow, I really want to get there,
I think humility, especially in the earlier years, I feel like now that makes me sound old to be describing you that way, but learning from the greats and kind of taking that as a call to action versus, I don't know if there's a temptation to pump yourself up too much. Of course you should have a confidence level, but maintaining like a healthy sense of what's really great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a difference between confidence when you're working on stuff and when you play. I think when you play, you want to be 100% confident no matter where you're at. I learned that from a lot of people here, actually. Every great musician I've been around, but I remember when I first started out playing, I would kind of like ease into my ideas, if that makes sense. Like I would play with people who I respected, and I would like kind of go into something that I thought was cool, kind of use my intuition, but I would, with my body language and how I went into the idea, I'd be like, is this cool? And now I don't do that anymore, because I've learned you, when you're playing, that's not good. That's not in service to what we're doing. And now when I play, it's like, regardless, I don't even think about the quality of my ideas. I'm just, here's what I'm going to say. I'm doing it, It's
so powerful how, with imposter syndrome, the worst part of it is that it actually changes how you think and behave, because if you feel like you don't belong or that your ideas aren't worthy of being listened to or aren't excellent, then that does change, as you're saying, your body language and how you present it. And you want to inspire a kind of confidence around you to be, taking your ideas and going with it even further.
Yeah, and if you feel incompetent when you're playing, there's no chance it's gonna really amount to anything. If
you might as well just try.
Yeah. If you just like, I don't know, if you focus on what you want to say, then you have a chance of really getting to something. And I've really made, I think, a lot of big kind of steps in the past year, and kind of changed the whole way I go about things in some ways, just about not being insecure. And I just figure, like, there are periods where I'm like, am I doing the world a service with my music? Like, am I really like putting something out there that's worthy? Am I ready to play with these people? And now I'm just kind of like, now, like, if I turn one, like, I'm a teacher too, and if I turn one kid, onto the Miles Quintet in my lifetime and see their face lighting up, kind of doing a service, and that's worth it to me. And just the process, it's less about the outcome,
Yeah.
Every time we get on stage, the sound, the band dynamics, it's all going to be different. Yeah. So it's, be the best musician you can be, practice 10 hours a day, but you can't really worry about how it comes out too much because there's only so much control we have over that.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like that's the answer to so many things in life. If you're nervous of like, how can I think about how it's not just about me or me at all, of like, it's about the music or the audience and someone in there who might have the kind of moment you had in Louisville. And I've heard so much too about your mentors, but already hear you being a mentor for others or having that growth that you can share. And so I think that's something to feel really good about as well. Going back to August 19th, you'll be playing with George MacLaurin. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to share on behalf of Mark or George or this who will be playing about the kind of songs you'll have or what people can expect?
Yeah, I haven't talked to them too much about the set list yet, but I'm leaving that up to those guys. They're driving down. It's Mark's the name on the gig. It's he's a very open guy, and I think it'll be kind of a collective thing and just a chance to get together and make music. But I think it'll be mostly his compositions and maybe some free improv, which I've actually never done. I've done a lot in Boston. I've never done with people here.
Oh, nice.
Too much. So that'll be interesting to get some different perspectives on that. And I'm really excited. George is just an incredible musician. I felt that we've always had a really good connection when we play together. It's easy for me to play. There are a couple people who I feel like I don't have to think at all anytime. Mm-hmm. I don't even have to worry about are we gonna get a groove going on? Is it gonna feel good? It just kind of happens. And I definitely, I don't know if he'd say the same. I definitely feel like he's in that category for me. It's just easy to play with him. It's fun to play with him. And, Mark, both of those guys are so inspiring. I learned so much from playing with them. And so I'm beyond excited. I think Mark, for one of his big dissertations and projects, he's been, learning all these Woody Shaw tunes, transcribing them. He's writing a huge paper on them. And he did a recital of all Woody Shaw tunes. So maybe we'll do great. Some of those.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on too at some point to hear about his research and his own music as well. But Kai, thank you so much for coming on the series and for sharing about you. Is there anything else you'd want to tell the Six Count audience?
No, not particularly. Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on. Please come to the gig on August 19th. Check out my Instagram, check out my SoundCloud.
Which is at Kai Lance.
The Instagram?
Either one, I guess.
Instagram at Kai Lance _ and then the SoundCloud will be linked onto that.
Okay, great.
And so will the tickets to the August 19th if you're not familiar with the Sharp 9 website. I hope everyone shows out. It should be a beautiful night of music. And, if anyone ever is interested in teaching or taking lessons or, hearing more of my music, getting on my mailing list, please reach out. Love to hear from people.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Six Count. I'm Zara Wild. You can let us know what you thought of the episode or recommend a guest by emailing us at sixcountpodcast@gmail.com or by finding us on Twitter or Instagram at sixcountpodcast. If you'd like to support our work in telling the story of jazz in Durham, you can make a gift to the show by following the link in our episode description. Thanks for listening.